Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues, all from a Catholic perspective. I'm your host, Catherine Hadro, in our Washington, D.C. studio. Thank you for joining us. In this week's show, as we celebrate Women's History Month, the host behind a popular podcast tells us why being pro-life is pro-woman. The president of Planned Parenthood penned a new op-ed, "We Speak Out Against the Pieces, Misinformation," and this.
It's been an incredible journey. We always said you sort of forget who's adopted and who's not adopted. It's your family.
Kirk and Chelsea Cameron, a couple on screen and off, open up about the powerful way adoption has shaped their family. But first, our top story: abortion advocates continue to push false claims surrounding the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act after it failed to pass the Senate last week.
What about the babies that survive abortion? How come they can't have health care?
Infanticide is illegal everywhere in America. Go ahead. Infanticide is illegal everywhere in America.
That was Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democratic presidential candidate, dodging a question in Iowa about her vote against the Born Alive bill. The Born Alive bill would require abortion survivors receive appropriate medical care, but it failed to pass the Democratic filibuster in the Senate last week. And yet another example of misinformation surrounding this bill: Planned Parenthood released a statement saying the Born Alive bill is, quote, not based in science or reality. We will address these false claims with a top pro-life leader shortly, but now to discuss the Born Alive bill and more, we go to our first guest. Joining us now from Capitol Hill is Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri. Senator, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
First off, what is your reaction that the Senate failed to pass the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act?
You know, it's incredibly disappointing. It's really incredibly shocking. I mean, the idea that the Democrats will not agree to protect babies who are born in this country. Here's what the bill says. I was proud to co-sponsor it, by the way. The bill says that every infant born in this country deserves medical care and medical protection, even if they're survivors of abortion. You know, the survivors of abortion, babies who survived abortions, they're no different than anybody else. So if you've got a young baby who survived an abortion, she deserves the same protection as everybody else. And the fact that Democrats voted no on that, I think, really tells you what a hard left turn they have taken, the sort of extremism you're seeing on their side. It's just not who we are as Americans.
It's devastating. I want to turn now to the role of the courts in the pro-life issue. You are a freshman senator and have already been appointed to the Senate Judiciary Committee, which has the major responsibility of confirming judicial nominations. And you said in a public letter, "I will not vote to confirm nominees whom I believe will expand substantive due process precedents like Roe v. Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood of Southeast Pennsylvania." Senator, can you walk us through what do you mean by that?
Well, I just mean that, look, President Trump said that he was going to appoint judges who were pro-life judges who respected life and who weren't going to make stuff up in the Constitution. And he was right, and I agree with that. And so my job as a senator is to ask every judicial nominee who comes through the committees I sit on, who comes across my desk, is this somebody who's going to respect the Constitution? Now, look, judges are bound by precedent. Lower court judges especially are bound by precedent. That is what it is. But what I'm saying is I'm not going to support anybody who is going to expand this judicial activism, who's going to take away the rights of states and local governments to protect unborn life to the maximum extent possible under current law. So I've taken the same pledge the president's taken, and I'm going to fulfill that pledge.
I also want to give you the opportunity, Senator, to respond to that Wall Street Journal editorial, which essentially accused you of using judicial nominees to look like a pro-life hero. What's your response to that?
Hey, my response is I am not going to shy away from asking every judicial nominee if they'll follow the Constitution. The Constitution does not give judges the right to impose their own social views. It doesn't give judges or justices the right to make stuff up. And I think it is absolutely critically important that we ask every judge who comes in front of Congress and in front of the Senate, will you adhere to what the Constitution says? Will you follow what we, the people, have written and not just impose your own social agenda or your own social views? That's the job I was sent here to do, and that's what I'm going to do.
Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, welcome to the show. It's good to have you and hope to have you back again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Joining us now in our studio is Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of the Susan B. Anthony List. Marjorie, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good to be with you as always.
It's great to be with you. Before we delve into this discussion right now, I first want to take a listen to what some of the Democratic senators were saying about the Born Alive bill on the Senate floor. Okay. Take a listen.
For women, this is a health care issue, not a political issue. And this bill, I fear, interferes with the doctor-patient relationship, and that should worry us all.
Contrary to what the proponents of this bill argue, it is and has always been a crime to harm or kill newborn babies. And people guilty of this crime can already be charged and prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
This bill is not about protecting infants, as Republicans have claimed, because that's not up for debate, and it is already the law.
Marjorie, were these senators responding to the actual text of the bill? What did you make of these speeches?
I just think did they read the bill? Did their staff read the bill? Are they listening to any of it? Are they intentionally obfuscating? You know, it's hard to know. Either they're really not responsible or they're really not that smart, honestly. I think, frankly, they're giving us a sense of this bill that simply isn't. Infanticide is the only thing that this is about. It is not about anything about access to abortion. I mean, we would like to do that, but that is not in the case here. This bill is only about providing the failed aborted child life-saving measures as you would give to any other child at that same gestational age. That's it. And it provides penalties in case people in the room don't do that. None on the mother, but on the rest, there are penalties. It is only about that. And for them to make it about anything else confuses the issue. And frankly, I think that's their goal.
We thought, Marjorie, it would be helpful for our viewers to do a rapid-fire response to some of the common myths surrounding the Born Alive bill. How's that sound?
That sounds fantastic.
Okay, myth number one, here we go. The Born Alive bill would impact whether or not a woman can get an abortion.
Nothing about access to abortion, only about infanticide. That's it. Save the baby if it's born.
Myth two, and this one is upsetting. Abortion survivors are a scare tactic and don't actually exist.
Well, you and I both know several personally that were abortion survivors. The CDC looked over a 10-year period. They found 143. That's not even close to reality. It was a regular thing in the Gosnell Clinic in Philadelphia to have babies born accidentally that he would then kill. Okay, so we know this occurs. We know them personally. It's such an affront to the horror that they went through, and certainly is a great deviation from where we are right now in terms of this debate.
And finally, myth number three, infanticide is already illegal.
Well, it's clear by the debate that went on in Virginia and the debate that went on in New York that it is not already illegal. The question at hand is if a baby is born and is sitting there waiting for life-saving care, do you help the baby or not? And the law said, that bill that was not passed says you must help the baby. That is not currently the law, and that is what should happen.
Thank you for those clarifying answers. Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
The U.S. Senate recently rejected the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, a bill that would protect newborns who survive botched abortions by requiring they get the necessary and appropriate medical care. The Senate essentially voted against a ban on infanticide. This Born Alive bill is crucial legislation, and that's why the pro-life movement is not giving up on it. Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey and Congresswoman Ann Wagner of Missouri announced they are co-sponsoring a House version of the Born Alive bill. But we need more support for this bill to bring it to a vote, and that takes us to this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com. Again, that is prolifeweekly.com. Here, you can send a message to your U.S. representative asking them to become a co-sponsor of the Born Alive bill in the U.S. House. Generally, the more co-sponsors a bill has, the greater chance there is for the bill to go to the floor for a vote. It is so important the U.S. House votes on the Born Alive bill so we have a chance to protect abortion survivors, and so we can see where each and every congressman stands on infanticide. When you go to prolifeweekly.com, you'll fill out some of your basic information so we can send this message to be for your specific U.S. representative. The Senate's rejection of the Born Alive bill is a disgrace. Be sure to tell your representative you do not want them to make that same mistake, and you want them to take a stand against infanticide. Tell your representative to co-sponsor the Born Alive bill by going to prolifeweekly.com. Moving now to our next segment, as we enter into Women's History Month, we look into a new book by a popular Catholic podcast host who writes the Catholic Church is pro-life because she is pro-woman. Claire Swinarski is the creator and host of the Catholic Feminist Podcast. The wife and mother is also the author of a new book, Girl Arise. In her book, Swinarski tackles the pro-life issue, writing, "There's one huge issue that divides secular and Catholic feminists. We can, for the most part, get on the same page about so much, but pro-life issues seemingly will forever be that hefty orange caution tape that divides us. To me, this isn't just an issue that causes finger-pointing and hurt feelings. It's more than that. This is where the church opens wide her arms, steps it up, and shouts, 'We're pro-women,' in her loudest voice." Joining us now is Claire Swinarski, the host of the Catholic Feminist Podcast and author of the new book, Girl Arise, a Catholic Feminist's Invitation to Live Boldly, Love Your Faith, and Change the World. Claire, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so grateful we can have this conversation. And first off, the word feminism has a lot of buzz surrounding it and probably some misconceptions. So first off, can you just establish, what do you mean by feminism, Claire?
Absolutely. That's a great question to start with because, as you know, a lot of people have really different definitions of that word. And I think it's so important to start by making sure we're on the same page. So we define feminism as the equality of the dignity of men and women, that men and women were made with equal worth and dignity and bring the same amount of value to the table.
Excellent. And Claire, you always begin your podcast with this question, so I'm going to turn the table and ask you, what does your life as a Catholic feminist look like?
So I live in Wisconsin with my husband and my 2 kids. I spend a lot of my day handing out fruit snacks and potty training and doing not very glamorous things. But I'm also a children's book writer and a podcaster, so I have the good fortune of writing books that I love to write, and I get to interview women for the Catholic Feminists.
That's beautiful. And speaking of your new book, you dedicate an entire chapter in your new book, Girl Arise, to the pro-life issue. Can you explain, Claire, why you say being pro-life means being pro-woman?
Absolutely. We had Abby Johnson on the podcast once, and she really rocked my world the way she explained it, talking about how so often at Planned Parenthood, at these abortion facilities, when women come in, you know, we say pro-choice, but they really feel like they don't have a choice. They feel like this is their only option. And when you look at studies from the Guttmacher Institute, which is a pro-choice think tank, talking about why women get abortions, it's so often because they felt there was no other option. They felt like it was going to affect their work. It was going to affect their finances. They weren't in a great relationship. And so women come when they feel like they have no other choices. And so what we in the pro-life feminist movement like to do is empower those women that, yes, this maybe isn't what you had planned. This isn't what you thought your life was going to have in store, but you can do it. You are capable. You are strong. And not only do we want to say those nice words, but we actually want to help you in really concrete ways. So we talk a lot on the show and in the book about how to support women when they're in that stage of life, how to look into your local pregnancy center and see what they need, and how to fight for policies that will help moms in the workforce and help moms finish school and go to work, help foster a culture of relationships and marriage so that women don't feel alone. That's such an empowering message versus what I hear from pro-choice feminists, which is, yeah, you can't do it. You are too weak to do it. You probably can't handle it. To me, that's not empowering at all, but just complete disenfranchisement.
In your experience, have you found that the pro-life feminist label is isolating? How do you make the case to people who might reject either one of those terms?
I think I definitely used to, and that was part of why I started the podcast, is because I knew that there were other women out there who felt like that, but sometimes the angriest voices seem the loudest, and they get the most attention, and the people saying the most out there things are the ones that everyone wants to pay attention to. But there are so many women who are pro-life because they care about other women. You know, we're not pro-life because, like, we want to make your life really hard. We're not pro-life because we want to take away your power. No, we're pro-life because we love you, because we see you as made in the image of God. And so It used to feel isolating, but after I was able to start the podcast and meet so many other women who felt the same way, our team is strong. Man, there are so many pro-life feminists out there, and I feel like I just have a whole crowd of women walking alongside me.
And on the flip side, by using the term feminist, you see opportunities open up and doors open up for dialogue with people who otherwise might disagree with you or brush you aside. I mean, I imagine the feminist label does catch people's attention.
Absolutely. There's so many things that pro-life feminists and pro-choice feminists agree upon. So maybe we could start there. You know, we both want mothers to be cared for in the workplace. We both want women who are experiencing homelessness to find solutions. You know, we have so much that we agree on. If we can get past this one huge barrier and start looking at other ways we can connect, I think that that's the most worthwhile way to spend our time. And also, if we push away every pro-choice person and just put them in a box and say, you're a terrible human and I want nothing to do with you, what do you think their impression of pro-life people is going to be? You know, how are we ever going to then work and try to change their heart and mind on that huge issue? So if we push people away, that's really just counterproductive to building up God's kingdom.
Claire Swinarski, host of the Catholic Feminist Podcast and author of the new book, Girl Arise. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
When we come back.
Adoption, I really think, is at the very heart of God. You think of, as Christians, we can't overlook the fact that Jesus himself was adopted.
Kirk and Chelsea Cameron open up about being called to adoption. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm your host, Catherine Hadro. Planned Parenthood President Dr. Leana Wen took to the pages of the Washington Post to paint a pro-life policy as, quote, unethical. That's this week's Speak Out segment. As we reported, the Trump administration recently finalized the Protect Life rule, which will redirect Title X family planning funds away from clinics that perform or refer patients for abortion to clinics that instead provide health care and not abortion. This means Planned Parenthood will lose their second largest source of federal funding. So as you might suspect, the abortion giant has been attacking the pro-life rule. Planned Parenthood President Leana Wen wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post last week entitled, "The Trump Administration Wants to Censor Doctors. It's Unprecedented and Unethical." Like many pro-abortion activists, Wen smeared this life-saving effort as, quote, the gag rule. Touting her credentials as a physician, Wen argued the rule will, quote, let politicians censor our healthcare providers and erode the trust our patients have placed in us to provide them with compassionate, judgment-free, and comprehensive care. First things first, contrary to what abortion activists like Wen say, the Protect Life rule is not a gag rule. It does prohibit Title X dollars from performing or referring for abortion, but it does not block anyone from using Title X services, and it does not prohibit conversation surrounding abortion. No one is blocking speech here. No one is being censored. The term gag rule is just another scare tactic by Planned Parenthood. But even more importantly for us to focus on is this. Real health care does not intentionally end a human life. Nothing about abortion is compassionate. As Wen so frequently reminds us, she is a medical doctor, so this is a basic fact she should know. In her Washington Post op-ed, Wen also argued that the Protect Life rule, quote, interferes with the sacred physician-patient relationship. In truth, it is human life that is sacred, and it is ending human life that is unethical. The Planned Parenthood president has the freedom to write whatever she wants in her Washington Post op-ed, and I'm grateful I have the freedom to state the pro-life view right here. There's no gag order preventing that. Now I just hope that Dr. Wen hears the pro-life perspective, takes it to heart, and starts fighting to save lives instead of working to end them. Remember, there is always something you can do to counter today's culture of death. Follow this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com to ask your congressman to co-sponsor the House version of the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. Finally, we turn to a Hollywood power couple who both are passionately pro-life. Actors Kirk and Chelsea Cameron, who first met on a TV sitcom studio set, are married with 6 children, 4 of whom are adopted. I sat down with the Camerons in January when they were in Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. My interview with this Hollywood couple about family and adoption is this week's Pro-Life Focus. Kirk and Chelsea Cameron, thanks so much for taking some time to be with us today.
My pleasure.
So first off, you all have 6 children, 4 of whom are adopted, and you adopted your 4 children before your 2 biological children. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
How did you two come to make that decision together?
Well, I was adopted also. My brother's adopted, so I've always had a passion for adoption, and I think we wanted our adopted kids to feel like they were our first choice. I feel so grateful for my life and my family, and so I don't know that we knew we would adopt 4 in a row.
No,
yeah,
they came quick.
Yeah,
about a year apart.
Wow.
So yeah. All 6 are a year apart, and so we formed the family pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just how it happened for us. Our first 4 came pretty quickly.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And with adoption being such a big part of your family, what do you think are some of the misconceptions out there facing adoption, misconceptions you'd like to just break?
People often ask me, like, is it different with your biological children and your adopted children? But once a baby is placed in your arms, or a child of any age, and you're their mom or you're their dad, I just think there's a special bond that does come straight from God. Doesn't necessarily have to come from your body, So it's been an incredible journey. We always said you sort of forget who's adopted and who's not adopted. It's like your family.
Right. Right. That's beautiful.
Yeah, we do say that every once in a while. We forget which ones are adopted and which ones aren't. And it's been such a gift for us to have a family this large and to have it come together in such diverse ways. We also have a diverse family, so we have multiracial family, and so that makes our family just this family of different colors, of different backgrounds, different talents, different gifts, and it's really a beautiful mosaic of things that God brings together for our family. And I want to also point out too that adoption, I really think, is at the very heart of God. You think of, as Christians, we can't overlook the fact that Jesus himself was adopted, right? So Joseph adopts Jesus as his son. You think of Moses, who is an adopted child. And as Christians, we're adopted is actually the word that's used in Scripture to talk about the way that we are brought into God's family. Regardless of our background, regardless of the color of our skin, regardless of our religious upbringing, we're adopted into his family by faith, and we become his children 100%.
Yeah, we're meeting here the week of the March for Life, and you both are hosting the Save the Storks Gala. And I've spoken at CareNet conferences before. It seems like you both have a heart for these pregnancy resource centers and just being there for women in unexpected pregnancies. Why is that important?
For me, it's a story of my life. There was somebody who stepped in and, I'm from a teenage mom, all my kids also. And there's that fear, I think, that when someone says, you can do this, and I'm going to help you do this, and you feel so much gratitude for that person who counseled them and helped them to choose life, that I've always prayed to be involved in this movement or this cause, this mission. And so when Storks came across our path, I knew that this was right at the heart of what I wanted to do. So I'm honored, I'm thrilled. I haven't really in the past been able to travel much because I've been raising 6 kids.
Right.
Yeah, so I have some drivers at home now, so yeah. So it's really a new season for me to be able to get out and share and help support this cause. So it's very exciting.
And this is your first March for Life, is that right? How do you feel? How does it feel to be here in DC?
Yeah.
No, we've never actually been to one of them.
And it's very personal for me. Whenever I see people come together for this cause, I'm so thankful personally to them.
Me too.
Yeah.
The 7 most important people in my life My wife, who is adopted, our 4 adopted children, and our 2 natural-born children who wouldn't be here if my wife had not been adopted, if she had been aborted. So this is very important and exciting to us.
One decision can impact so many lives and so many generations. My final question, Chelsea, really is to you. If there's an expectant mother who's watching this, considering adoption, as an adopted daughter yourself, what would you want to tell that woman?
Well, I told my son Jack when I first time I talked to him about adoption, he was about 4 or 5. I explained to him that God had placed him in a really, really special woman's tummy. He placed Jack with somebody so amazing who loved him, who took care of him for 9 months, fed him and loved him, but also knew that, for my story, was that it was not time for her to be a mom. But she listened to the voice of God. What I would say is the pregnancy is a miracle. It's not a problem. There are people who could help you through, and there are, whether you choose to raise a baby, God's grace and His help and His strength will be with you, and there's people to help you in this journey. But I think I would just say that to just breathe and say, you know what, this is a gift from God, and I'm going to be a part of giving someone life.
Well, I hope that message reaches the ears that need to hear it. Kirk and Chelsea Cameron, thank you for your witness.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great
so
to talk
good to be
you.
here. Thank you.
What a beautiful witness for life. That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. But before we let you go, I have a request. We are gearing up here for World Down Syndrome Day later this month. If you have a loved one who has Down syndrome and you email us a photo of your loved one with one sentence on why they are special to you, why you love them, you might just see your message here on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. You can email us at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com. You can also find us all over social media. Just search for EWTN Pro-Life. I can't wait to see those pictures. Remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.